Good morning, all, and thanks a lot for showing up, attending our session. On today's session, we'll be looking at a recipe for the future, cooked along with .NET Core and Jamstack mix. A little intro about ourselves. Myself, Ramkumar, Dhinakaran, working as a global Sitecore lead developer, and I was MVP between 2020 and 2021. Currently residing in Luxembourg and having more than 10 years of experience in Sitecore. I also blog in my own blogging website, which is thesitecourse.net. And I let my friend and colleague Elakkuvan to introduce about himself.
Hello all, thank you for attending this session. So this is Elakkuvan Rajamani. I currently work as a senior Sitecore consultant at Voltech. I have 5+ years of experience in Sitecore, and I currently live in France. And I have my own blog where I do hope you can find some good Sitecore stuffs. Thank you.
So Jamstack, we have been hearing this buzzword for a while, right? All of us here, we have come across this word, a buzzword. Even in yesterday's session, we have come across this buzzword. So this comes with its own benefit, the Jamstack. So let's quickly see what is Jamstack, and to compare the Jamstack, we have to compare with the normal traditional website. So the normal traditional website, we have the site which is being accessed by the client, and the client is going to interact with the website. The website is residing in a web server. And the web server can have multiple app instances or app server. And within the app server, there's also the connection between the databases or the CMS, right? So it's such a complex thing with the traditional approach. Let's quickly see the Jamstack. The Jamstack site is a simplified version of having a website running. So we have the client. Client is going to access the CDNs, and the CDN is having the pages pre-built in it. There's no mechanism of serving the client based on the request coming in. It's all pre-built. And it's deployed to the CDNs and all distributed, right? And then we have all the tiny bits and pieces, all the small logical functions and stuff moved to microservices. So this is kind of the Jamstack approach, and you can see here the pieces between the normal traditional approach of having a site and the Jamstack. It's very simplified. So because of all this simplification, Jamstack has its own benefits. So I would like to highlight 4 key benefits here. The first one being security aspect, right? So we are removing the web server, we are removing the app server, all the pages are pre-built and it's deployed to the CDN. So you don't have to really worry about the security anymore, right? You don't have to really look into the web server or app instances. You don't have to worry about securing it. You're pre-building the pages. You're pre-building the pages about what client has to see, right? So you don't have to really worry about the security. So this is one of the key aspects. Let's see the other one, availability. How many of you have been worried about the client's downtime? Almost everyone. Right? To be honest, when we are working with the site clients, we're really worried when the site is hosted on SaaS, IaaS or PaaS, because we are also having a dependency on the platform. So it can be Azure, which is going offline, or there's a platform upgrade going on. But when you're deploying the CDN, you don't really have to worry about any of these availability stuff. It's always available and highly distributed. Maintainability. We are developers, right? We are developing a part of features which the client is requesting us to develop, and we are developing them and we are deploying that all the while. But maintenance is a big key thing when it comes to Sitecore. The reason being, it's not because of the features, it's because of all the deployment setup, all the DevOps, all the aspect that goes into the release activities, right? So all these things are kind of removed in the Jamstack approach. Because we are not using web server, we are not using app server, we're just rebuilding the pages and deploying to the CDNs. I don't have to talk about this. Everyone knows. So the site is pre-built. So it's highly performing. It outbeats the traditional approach in all ways, the Jamstack site. So we'll be looking at this performance aspect a lot in the later part of the slides, but this is going to be the key aspect for anyone choosing this kind of approach. Okay. So what is special about our session? We have been hearing this Jamstack, Sitecore has its own Jamstack stuff, and we are kind of going to open up this kind of approach, and this is going to be a special recipe for .NET and C# developers. Before I show you a pie chart, I want to do a little survey in this room. So I would like to just break into 2 different questions. So how many of you are backend experts who are in .NET and C#? Can you just please raise a hand? Okay.
almost everyone.
So just I'm not doing a count, but it looks like almost everyone in this room are like working in backend stack with .NET and C#. How many of you are working in front end stack like Next.js, React and stuff?
Okay.
Still a lot, but not as much as the backend developers, right? So let's see this pie chart. So I just took this pie chart from the community.sitecore.com, and you see the clear winner here. It's like Sitecore community's clear favorite is .NET and C#. And this survey, just to highlight this survey was taken 3 years back. But looking at the survey that we took just a moment back, it's still the same, right? So the backend is the clear favorite for Sitecore. But in the recent times, what is happening here is that the Sitecore is kind of focused towards the front end. They are building JSS platform, a lot of headless development being the key focus for the Sitecore. And all the releases, if you look, is targeting the front end frameworks, correct? So this is kind of limiting the fun for the backenders, right? The backenders traditionally had a lot of fun when it comes to the Sitecore development because we love Sitecore so compared to the other CMS because we can do whatever we want. We can extend it, we can play with it, we can really nail it as we like. So what we are trying to do here, we are going to try to change or introduce a new approach which is favorable for the backenders. So let's just have the same amount of fun which front-enders are having right now. They are having all the new releases coming up. They are having all the React stuff, Next.js stuff. Why not? Why not backenders have the same fun which front-enders are having? That's a key for the session. So I just want to, before diving in deep into the aspect that we have done, so I would like to highlight few popular ingredients when it comes to the key frameworks that is used in the JS and .NET recipes. So let's quickly look at the JS part. All of you here, know the Next.js is the popular one, and the next one being the Gatsby and the Nuxt. And why this is famous is because you look at the contributor numbers. It's immense, right? It's open source. It has so many contributors. All these frameworks are really, really popular because it has a lot of features in it. That's the reason why Next.js is really popular, and that's the reason why Sitecore picked Next.js. And all these, have all the capabilities of Jamstacking. They have SSG, static site generation. They have all the ISR capabilities, even SSR capabilities in Next.js, and they can also deploy to multiple different CDNs. That's why they're really popular. But let's quickly look at the popular ingredients in the .NET recipes. In the .NET recipes, we just filtered out thanks to jamstack.org, which is a website, is promoting the Jamstacking thing. So we have static, Presil, and Grace, and static is becoming really popular. But just look at the contributors number. It's still less, but they're kind of catching up. So we are kind of, the backenders are really, really catching up. They want to stick with the trend. They're kind of catching up. So slowly, the features are going to increase in these new frameworks that we have for the .NET, and slowly it's going to be popular. Okay, so let's see, we saw a moment back, we had different other frameworks, but we have to see why static is a preferred ingredient when it comes to Jamstacking. We have so many other frameworks, we can also custom build something, but why we have to choose static? It's open source. And anything which is open source is being monitored by a big community members, right? It's going to have a lot of contributors. When it's having a lot of active contributors, it's going to be enhanced with features, a lot of features that's going to come in. So anything that we are kind of choosing should be open source so that we can monitor what is going to come in. We can monitor the piece of code that's going into the framework and so on. So static being an open source is the best choice. Different source support. So I just want to highlight this in a bit. So different source support. If you're working in a Sitecore project, how many integration is going on, right? A lot of integration aspects. You'll be connecting with CRMs, you'll be connecting with some marketing platforms, you'll be connecting with some lot of other tools. It's not just Sitecore that you're doing, you're connecting with a lot of other touch points, right? So all these integration that you have is going to serve you data of different types. It can be services, it can be services that is going to give you back JSONs, it can be XMLs, it can be any kind of data. Static is going to support all these different types of data. So which is key. Flexible and extensible. So I just highlighted a moment back, the backenders had a lot of fun with Sitecore because it's really flexible and extensible. So when we choose a framework, we have to make sure that it's also flexible and extensible. So static is, as a framework, has a lot of pre-built pipelines, and they have their custom modules. It's kind of really flexible and extensible, which is again a key. documentation. So any developer here knows like without documentation, it's going to be really, really hard. You need to use .NET Peak. How many of you are using it? I'm not sure. So, so you kind of, when the documentation is not there, it's hands down totally. You won't stick to that framework. When you have clear documentation and examples with a lot of active developers, you're going to try this framework. So static is one of this, one of the .NET frameworks which has really good amount of documentation. Okay, so now we saw all the stories about jam stacking, all the stuff about static and so on. So what is our recipe? So I would like to highlight our solution a bit. So we are doing together with XMH and .NET Core. So in this, we have 4 different pieces or 4 different blocks. So the first block being the CMS block. In the CMS block, there's no change here. So the CMS is going to be like a CMS. So the CMS, when it functions with the head, it's normally in the headless platform. We have the rendering host being the giving the endpoint for the experience editing. So the content author is going to come to the CMS. So the content author is going to go to the page, and the content author can use the content editor or experience editor. And when he's using the experience editor, it's going to be access to the rendering host. And once the editing is done, the page is saved and published, and it moves to the experience edge. So experience edge already it's kind of distributed. It's like a CDN, and it already has its own GraphQL endpoint, right? So the GraphQL endpoint is a key in the experience edge. It's going to give back a lot of different things. It's going to give back you items. It's going to serve the search stuff, and it's also going to give you the layout requests and responses. So what we're doing here is like we have the third important block, which is the customized block that we have, which is called this rendering host static site generator, which is built on static. And here we have our custom hook, which is called as generate pages. And this custom hook, what it does is like it does a layout request to the experience edge. And once it gets does the layout request, it gets back the layout response. Already, like when you're working with the headless approach, the layout response is going to have all the components, all the placeholders, all the important stuff that is required for the page to be built. So we get back this layout response, and then this is the key part here. So we have a couple of custom built static pipelines, which is the pages pipeline and copy assets pipeline, which Elak will be explaining in a few more moments in detail. But we have this custom pipeline, which is the pages and the copy assets pipeline. So these pipelines will get this layout response from the GraphQL API. And what it does is like it kind of bundles them. It kind of creates the pages and generates the HTML. For any HTML to function, it also needs static assets, right? So it needs a CSS file, it needs JS file, it needs images. So copy assets is going to do this, and the pages pipeline is going to generate the HTML. And this together is moved to the static pages output folder, and final step of this process is going to be deployed to a CDN. At least for now, what we have done as a part of this exercise or POC is like we are just moving this, deploying to the Netlify. So we are supporting only for the Netlify for this moment. But in the future, we are going to support all the other popular CDN platforms. So now I just hand over to Elak, who will be explaining in detail about the static pipelines.
Hello all. So we have seen that we have used static for our approach, and the static by default provides set of pipelines, and we have our own set of customized pipelines that depends on the static pipeline. So before we move into our custom pipeline, so we have to see how the static framework works. So the static framework receives input from different sources. The sources can be like databases, or it can be like services, or the input file may also be direct input files. So these files are then created as a document that contain content and metadata. So once the documents are created, so these documents gets processed by the pipelines of the static framework. So each of the static framework pipeline contains different set of modules that performs certain operations on the given document, and it produces certain form of output as a result. So each of the output of one pipeline can be made available to the another pipeline, or it can also be written to the output folder. So based on this working behavior, so we have two custom pipelines, as we have seen in the solution structure. So those custom pipelines are pages pipeline and the copy assets pipeline. So each of this pipeline, by default comes with a set of module list, like input module list, process module list, or output module list. And each of the module list contains different modules. The tiny blocks, you are seeing are the different modules of each module list. So we will be seeing each of this pipeline in detail. So the very first one is the pages pipeline. So this is one of the core pipeline in our approach. So this pages pipeline is having an input module list, and it's again having two different modules, and they are input pages and process pages. So each of these modules are linked. That means output of one module can be received by its previous module. So the the primary functionality of this input pages is to retrieve the different kind of site pages in the given site. So in order to do this, it has a own customized site page service that makes a GraphQL layout request to the experience edge endpoint, and it takes back the list of pages. So from the experience edge endpoint, it only receives the ID, path, and languages of the pages. It will not return anything more than that. So once they are received, they are gets passed to the next module, that is the process page. So the process page is having the primary functionality of this process page is to receive the layout response of each pages from the experience edge endpoint. So you'll be seeing in detail about this process page in the further slide. So like as you're seeing here, so by now when this gets executed, we will be having all the pages in the given site, and this particular module is going to process the pages one by one, and it just takes the language and path and site name of the each pages, and it constructs a GraphQL layout request, and it makes a GraphQL layout request to the experience edge endpoint, and it receives the layout response from the experience edge endpoint, and which is then gets deserialized, and it is added to a list of document that can be used, that will be used by the next module list. The next module list of the same pipeline is a process module list. As you're seeing, it has different modules like renderizer, images module, and Sitecore download images. The first module is a renderizer module. The primary functionality of this renderizer is to take the layout response of each pages, and it binds them with the Sitecore rendering context. So we'll be seeing in detail about this particular module in further slides. And we have next set of modules like images module and Sitecore download images. So by default, when the static documents gets created, all the images within the site will be pointing to the media library. So the primary functionality of the images module is to process the images one by one in the given document, and it simply replaces the image path to the corresponding to the output folder path. So, and then the Sitecore download images model gets triggered. It simply makes sure that it downloads the different images. The images can either be from media library, or it can also be from any external website. So it simply downloads the images, and it simply moves them to the output folder. So this is the renderizer model which we have seen before. So like this is a core piece of code, in our approach. As you're seeing, it processes the pages one by one, and it as it is processing, it just gets the layout response of the each page. As you're seeing in the first line, it just reads the layout response, and using the custom view renderer, it binds the layout response into the rendering context. So once the layout response is set to the rendering context, and the remaining is the further process is same, then the view render simply converts this layout response into a static HTML document. So the next final module list is the output module list. So by default, so when this particular module gets executed, so we would be having all the static documents created and as a list of documents, and it simply moves and writes the static HTML document into the output folder. So like we have the for last pipeline is the copy assets pipeline. So any site to work properly, it depends on different static assets like CSS, JavaScript, fonts, manifest files, etc. So the primary functionality of this particular pipeline is to simply copy those static assets into the output folder. So like so far we have seen how we how we read the site pages from the experience agent point, and how we convert the site pages into a static HTML document, and how we move the created static HTML document into the output folder. So we will be seeing how we will be moving this created static files into the Netlify CDN. So as I have told, so the output folder will be having all the static document created along with its different static assets, images, etc. So we are using a Netlify client that can be configured in the app-settings.config file of the rendering host project that contains a Netlify token and the site ID. The Netlify client simply uses this, and it simply takes the files whichever there in the output folder, and it simply deploys to the CDN. So far we have seen, how we create the, how we convert the Sitecore site into a static HTML document, and we also have seen, how we deploy them to the Netlify CDN. So now we have to, it's time to taste, and we will be seeing, in live. So for this demo, like we have created a site that is running in rendering host. So we have kind of mimicked the Sitecore SUGCON site, and we have different pages like sessions, speakers, venue, sponsors, etc. And we have different sites, and this one is a rendering host site running in my local. And you can notice the content, and we have the home carousel and homepage banner, and we have some list of sessions. And this is a rendering host site running in my local. And let us have a look the same in the Netlify site. This is a live Netlify site, and you can notice that the same the content is exactly same as the rendering host site that is running in local. So if we move into the CMS part, we can notice that we have different pages like sessions, speakers, venue, sponsors, etc. And let us also look at the CM site. I'm going to open this in the experience editor. So in the solution structure, we can notice that Ram explained that the editing functionality of the CMS will remain same. That means the content editor's life will be the same as how they are doing now. They can just add the components in the experience editor, and they can just edit, they can just play around it. So this is here a home page, and you can notice the content. And I'm going to edit this content in the experience editor. I'm just going to remove the Europe, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to make a publish. So the publish is completed. So that means in the solution outline, we have seen there is a hook, the process page that gets triggered by now. Let us have a look at the Docker running logs. We can notice that all our custom pipelines has triggered one by one, and we can see the details, the number of processed files, and we have only edited the home page. That means the modified static page will be 1. So it is like one actual files written to the output folder. So let us check the output folder. So this is the output folder, and we can notice that this file got edited recently. This is a static file that gets generated by means of our different custom pipelines, and it gets moved to the output folder. So let's quickly check the local rendering host site. I'm going to refresh this. We can notice that the content gets updated here. And let us quickly check the Netlify site for the deployment. So I'm going to edit the page once again. I'm going to have the Europe back. No, maybe I'm going to remove it. I'm going to do the publish. Let us check the output folder. Yes, it got updated in the output folder. So let us check the Netlify site.
Republish nothing. Some kind of a problem here. Republish. 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 Republish.
Hunter.
Yeah.
I just did it.
That's the last try. If not, let's go back to the theory.
I think there are some issues.
Yeah. There's some issue.
Edit a page. Edit a page.
Okay, so
Edit a page.
I think it's okay. So I think there's an issue. Maybe an issue with the Wi-Fi or something. Okay, the hook that worked couple of hours back is not working right now.
Yeah. So what it does is it simply takes the output folder. It considers all the files in the output folder, and the Netlify client will simply deploy them to the Netlify site, and we will be seeing the deployment over here. And when
maybe you can show this published files here, maybe the one that we did.
Yes. Yeah. This is the publish we tried today morning.
So you'll normally see the HTMLs moving here, and then it just extracts all the HTML that we get from the output folder to this stuff. So in the morning, probably we did this last publish, which is still having the Europe in it, and SUGCON as well as in it. So yeah, so just wanted to continue with this. Actually, it's seamless when it comes to the editing part. It's just do a change and then publish it. It changes in the rendering host, and finally it also gets updated in the SUGCON, the Netlify site.
As you're saying, we don't have any complex pipeline to move the content to the CDN site. It's just a matter of publishing, and it does the magic. So maybe let us go back to the slide.
No. So maybe one part of it, because of all the glitch that we had in the demo part, so it's kind of missed this thing. So let's come back to the performance stuff that we did in the morning. At least this is not broken. So we have this Lighthouse report that was taken in the morning, and you'll see the perfect underscore for this. So the reason being, like, it's already pre-built and deployed to the CDN. So we did this Lighthouse thing, and we get a perfect 100. So what the perfect 100 means is, like, you have the metrics like first content foot paint, time to interactive, speed index, total blocking time, and all those are just less than a second, right? Like 5 milliseconds or something like that. It's really important when it comes to the any site that's going to be built on future. It needs to perform like how we have the numbers here. So the Lighthouse is kind of mostly targeted towards the front end stuff. It doesn't simulate the traffic. It just it does the simulation of the front end aspect. But let's quickly jump back to the slide, and then
we can just open the other one.
Yes. Okay. So looking at this performance, let's compare the rendering host performance first. The rendering host performance, you'll see like a little bit about this. So we are simulating this numbers with the traffic. So Lighthouse did just the front end metrics, but this one is with the traffic. We use a framework called AutoCannon. So we have simulated this with 300 different uses, and for like 5 minutes. We did the simulation for the rendering host, which is running on .NET Core, and we also did the simulation for the CDN. So let's compare the numbers. So coming back to the numbers here, you'll see like the rendering host is for the same kind of simulation, it's going to accept like 65 requests per second, and its throughput is going to be an average of 363 kilobytes, and then the latency, which is key, right? The performance, and its average is around 1.5 seconds. 1.5 seconds is much better to the traditional approach, right? So we are most of the time we are expecting something less than 3 seconds to be kind of a better site. But let's jump into the report that we have for the Netlify site. So for the Netlify site, let's look at this one. Can you see the difference? So we are talking about 63 requests per second, and here we see like 5,000 requests per second for same number of users. So there's no kind of glitch because we are not doing a server-side rendering. The pages are pre-built, deployed, and distributed. And then we see the throughput here, again, 2 or 3 times more. We have like 950 kilobytes. And then finally the average, look at the average. We are talking about 15 milliseconds here. Compared to 1500 milliseconds, we are talking about 15 milliseconds. And these are the key things that we want to highlight here. So it's about the performance, and performance. So now we are talking about, we saw the bit of demo, we saw like how it is going to favor our developer community and so on. But for the developer community to sustain, it should be beneficial for the business, right? So let's see why it is beneficial for the business. We already talked a bit about that. So we are not changing any editing framework here. We are just using the Sitecore powerful CMS editing feature. We are going to continue using that, which means there's no change for the business. They're going to use the same content authoring stuff. They're going to use the same content authoring theme. There's no change in here. Then we have a new developer experience. So anyone, saying like Sitecore is slow, Sitecore is, is not built for the backenders and stuff, you're kind of, will start liking this new approach because it's really fast. You're going to build the features and then deploy and distribute in any of the CDN that you like. And it's going to bring in the new developer experience. Developers are going to stay back for the business and they work for the business. Performance, we already saw a lot of reports about this, but with the performance, we get the best user experience, right? So anyone using any website, if it is really, really slow, no one is going to come back. And if it is having a best performance, it's going to give the best user experience. They're kind of dependent with each other. So we are aiming for the best user experience, which is key for the business, any business that is running on Sitecore. And finally, reduce cost. We saw a lot of things here. One thing is like, you don't have to depend on a big maintenance team. You don't have to depend on a lot of the bigger deployment pipelines that you used to have. It's very simplified, which means it's reduced cost for the business, which is again a key highlight because they can invest this cost on developing the features instead of maintaining and doing all the releases. So I hope you understand a bit about all the benefits of the business, but we have to highlight some future plans that we are having for this framework. So the future plan is, currently, if you have seen the demo, but unlucky for us, but it is supporting only the SSG. We don't have SSR, which is like server-side rendering, which is key again. So you're working with a client, there's going to be a mix of both static site generation and going to be server-side rendering as well. We are going to work with sessions, we are going to work with financial institution. You definitely need SSR support, which is one of the key things for Next.js. They have both of these. So we are targeting to see somehow like can we have both of these together, which will be the future support. CDN support, at least for now, as I told you initially, we just deployed to the Netlify, but developers should not be opinionated, right? So they can use whatever they wish when it comes to the composable or anything that's going to happen in the future. So we have to support multiple CDNs here. So that's a target in the future. And then flexible incremental static site regeneration. Yesterday we kind of Tom just highlighted this word called rehydration. So rehydration is going to be the key, right? So it can be incremental static site regeneration, or it can be a piece of component that gets automatically updated, rehydrated. So we are planning to have this kind of a feature in this, at least for now. It's going to be through some kind of a middleware functions, like edge functions, which was explained yesterday. But it's going to be some middleware functions that can be even some simple function apps or something like that, or Lambda functions or something like that. but we are going to support that in the future. And finally, we are going to release this in the NuGet package, because anyone who's planning to use or planning to integrate in their custom solution for the client, they would like to have the NuGet packages, right? So it will be easier for developer to start working on it. So for all the backenders and even for the frontenders, so it's going to be an important thing to have a takeaway. So I will request all of you to please have a look at this repo and give it a try. Please give it a try.
Yes.
And just see how this developer experience is going to be for you, and how we can try this out for your different clients. And of course, when you try to clone the repo, you'll have a lot of ideas coming up in your mind. So please try to contribute. You can just create whatever feature you want. Just try to enhance it. And yeah, you can always reach out to me or Elak in Twitter or in LinkedIn or anywhere to just connect with us and ask any question that you have in the repo. So now is the part for questions.
Yes, it's container based.
It's container based.
So how was experience edited? Was enabled because it doesn't support server-side rendering? Was it done with like JSS?
Yeah.
You mean Experience Edge?
Experience editor functionality. Yeah, it's with JSS renderer.
Yes. So the Experience Edge, we are simulating with the schema that we have with the CM instance. So normally, if you see the headless services that got released with platform version 19, we have this GraphQL Edge and schema, which will simulate the same layout request and response, which we get from the actual Experience Edge. And we use this to kind of create this Jamstack mechanism using .NET Core SDK.
That was awesome. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, how did you find the performance of the generation of the static assets? So have you got a site with lots of content?
That's a really great question, actually. So, like content authors are like publishing all the day, all the hour, all the millisecond they are doing is like publish, and so on. This is, it's kind of a killer for Sitecore, right? It's going to clear the cache and so on. And when we have the static site regeneration or static site generation, what we have done is like we have already the best thing possible is Experience Edge, which is going to be distributed. So we're going to get it from there. But at least for this demo, what we have done, if you kind of clone the repo, you'll see a small piece in it, which is a data store using Redis. So what we do, we get back the layout response in our pages pipeline and store the serialized format, not only in the document, but also on the Redis. So when a user is publishing whatever page they want, it gets a hook there, and this just updates this particular page in the Redis, and then we kind of use that to generate.